Welcome to Book Talk. My name is Lizzy McNett, owner of Writers Publishing House. We are a full-service publishing firm, so if you're looking to write a book and you don't know how, or you've written a book and you're stuck, or possibly you've already published your book and you need some help with marketing, your sales aren't what you'd like them to be, please give us a call, email me, or go to the website and we can definitely help you. So today I am here with Gary Stuart.
Thank you.
I have known him for a couple of months now, really gotten to know him, and he is a fabulous guy, and I wanted to introduce you to all of you what he does. I really think he can help some of you out there. Mm-hmm. He's a very talented entrepreneur, very passionate about his craft. Gary owns Gary Stuart Constellation Healing Services. I'm going to let him tell you a little bit more about what he does. But he is also an author, award-winning speaker, award-winning author. He's written 12 books, 10 books, something like that. And he hasn't quite beat me yet, but he's close. So anyway, without further ado, I want to introduce my guest, Gary. And thank you for joining me today, Gary.
God,
how are you?
Absolutely thrilled to be here.
Awesome. So you handed me Deepak Chopra, your book this morning.
Yeah.
Chopra, right?
Yeah.
So is this like your favorite book?
Yeah, one of them. It's the first one I did. Well, a couple of the books on Amazon, I donated chapters and stuff, but they became bestsellers. So, but this one, a bestseller as well. And Deepak Chopra considers Amika Swami, the quantum physicist, his mentor.
Oh, wow.
And I happen to know the person who discovered Deepak Chopra 40-something years ago. She's a good friend of mine.
Oh, cool.
And so it was great to have him do a cover quote and endorse the book. And he actually did a 45-minute video on YouTube with me about the book. So it was thrilling to just, as a writer, you want to gain credibility.
Absolutely.
And I felt, regardless of the book sales, that's just very good credibility coming from a world-class thought leader.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yes. So it's called Constellation Healing. It has nothing to do with astrology. It's looking at the dynamics between, you could say, your family system. You have a mother star, a father star, the children's like a moon or whatever. So it's like that, but it's like the archetype of a family system. And we're seeing where things are out of sync. So what we call it the orders of love. When there's tragedy or trauma, the love stops flowing and then dysfunction takes its place. Now, this can go on for multi-generations.
Right.
So with this field of consciousness, we see where the love stopped flowing over trauma, famine, genocide, cheating, you name it, sudden death, you name it. And the grief, unresolved grief, has long impact for centuries. And so knowing world history much deeper now, having worked with people from Ireland, Jews with concentration camp,
right? Oh my goodness.
Africans with slavery. I mean, I have everything under the sun. I've done about 16,000 processes over 24 years. And you get an emotional side to the family history that's usually, people know the factual side, but the emotional side is generally swept under the rug to save the pain of the next generation.
Wow. So Gary and I go to a networking meeting on Thursday morning, which is where I met Gary. But one of the first meetings I went to, he talked about a client you were working with that was severely traumatized by that someone in her family had been on the Titanic.
Yes.
That just fascinated me. And I wanted to ask you if you could tell that story about that client.
Yeah, it's a very short story. So I worked with somebody, they wanted to work, and they were almost killed by their father who had a Vietnam flashback. Oh my God. So we were working on that trauma that she was almost killed. Now, the odd thing about that is the mother went into the bedroom, and when the father was threatening to kill the whole family, thinking they were Viet Cong, she pushed the client out to either be killed. Look at the betrayal there.
Wow.
You die for me.
Right.
Or she ended up being so smart, she talked her father out of the flashback and got him grounded. So she comes back a month later. Oh, I want to work on prosperity. I said, great. And she said, I feel so much lighter that trauma's, we leave the past in the past rather than lug it around and operate from that. And so, we use a representative. So someone in the group that doesn't even know the client's last name or their family story, totally blank slates. She picked a woman. She said, I'm just rocking. And the field kind of speaks to me. It's very shamanic, like we're getting the ancestors are communicating to me to reflect it back to the group and the client. I said, ask her about the Titanic. I said, no, just because someone says they're rocking, what does that have to do with the Titanic? Ask her. Third time, would you ask her about the Titanic? I said, okay, I'm being told I have to ask her about the Titanic. Yeah, my great-grandmother was the first one on the lifeboat, pregnant with my grandmother. I said, you didn't put that in your 2-page questionnaire. She said, you wanted me to go farther than 100 years? It was 102 years.
Wow.
I said, well, we're here now.
Gosh.
We're here now. And so we just dealt with the survivor guilt. So she's carried from her great-grandmother. So imagine that woman on the boat that night, pregnant, number one, surrounded by frozen bodies all around the lifeboat of dead people.
I can't even imagine
Just
that.
imagine that. So here we go 100 years later. Her great-granddaughter can't make any money. So it was, you got to survive and be alive, no extras for you. That's all you get.
Wow.
2 weeks later, she calls me, you're not going to believe this. I have to move to Petaluma. I'm teaching English at the University of California, whatever university is up there, for $5,000 a month for 1-day class.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, so, looks like the Titanic's done. They're related. I said, didn't you say you wanted prosperity? You were always out of work. And she got the best paying job of her life. All she had to do was relocate. And she didn't make the connection that the survivor guilt was gone. She could be successful now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, so what are your plans for the future?
Me? Well, I'm working on a new book.
Yeah, that's right. We were talking about that. Yes.
My next book is called Venus Envy, Busting the Male Misogyny Myth. So I'm going after sexism. I really feel the biggest ism on earth isn't Nazism, isn't globalism, is sexism was the first ism, and women have been squashed for a good 3,000 years, thanks to certain religions. I won't go into that. I am going into it in the book. And what people don't know is humanity was goddess worshippers for over 7,000 years until women were demonized.
Right.
And there was an angry male god that loved to kill people for offerings of loyalty, we'll call it. But that's the next one. But this was great because I got to demonstrate in Eugene, Oregon. We went up, Carl, David Blake and I went up there to meet with him to talk about doing a movie. That's still maybe in the works in the future. But I said, why don't we do a book so we develop a following? And that following can be movie participants because we have something put together in advance. They thought it was a great idea. And I gave him a 10-minute demo in his house. He just, being a rep, the client just touches you in the back. They go behind you and touch you, and you download. Those of us who are like intuitive or empathic, which I am in the healing arts anyway, we download their entire life story in a nanosecond.
Wow.
And when it first happened to me, almost 25 years ago, I had a huge download. I said, where did this come from? And I found out my teacher, who's deceased, Bert Hellinger, the developer of this, women psychotherapists. This is actually founded by females, but he got all the credit. The male got all the credit, not the females who did. They called it family architecture.
Okay.
Or they were looking at that. So they asked Bert Hellinger, before he made this modality famous, kind of word of mouth famous, to be a grandfather. He said, oh my God, where was that download? It just came out of nowhere. And he kept coming to their workshops. And then he coined the term, it's like a constellation, a pictograph in the sky. The stars are showing you an image.
Right.
Your family's showing you an image of what's really going on underneath the story that we've lived through.
I like that.
Yeah, and we're basically looking at the multidimensional story with the emotional component.
Right.
And the irony is, how could someone who's been dead for 100 years, like in the Titanic, show us the fear and anxiety, not even knowing that the client was in the Titanic and that's still alive in the conscious mind. Now, if you go into science, I'm glad about this book for the biggest reason. It's proven by quantum mechanics.
Okay.
So
all right.
When Amit had his session, I gave him his whole line, what happened to the family, the birth order, the emotional disposition of the mother, the children, the father. He said, not one thing was wrong, and you don't even know me. You don't even know and this is India, like 70 years ago.
Wow.
He's like 85, so yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I tuned into his whole Indian family system, and he's like, I have to rethink the universe.
Yeah.
You just put something factual into an emotional state with no information. And so the field, we call it the field, the knowing field. It has all the energy of the universe, past, present, future, and we can tap into it at any time.
Wow. Well, yeah, this one chapter here says, your obstacles block creativity. Great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds. Albert Einstein.
Albert Einstein. He could see. He was a great philosopher on top of being a mathematician. He was really a great philosopher.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's how you got started into this?
Well, it was just going into
a
a living room saying, would you be a rep? And I said, yeah, it sounds like I was in the healing arts in LA. I was doing massage, but I was picking up all this information from my massage clients. I said, what is this? Why am I getting these thoughts when I'm touching someone? And then when I discovered this modality, I said, oh my God, I'm in their field. When I'm massaging them, I'm touching like we walk behind the back, I'm touching their back. And so as a massage therapist and a psychology buff myself, I said, oh yeah, I see angers in their shoulders. So say, guys, oh, is there anything that's making you angry? Oh, funny, you should ask, But it started to get scary for some of the clients. I was massaging a woman's neck right at the end. And I said, I keep getting this picture of Matt with strawberry blonde hair. She said, you're scaring me. I had a bad breakup, and this is the first guy I wanted to date, Matt with strawberry blonde hair. So how could I pick up on that doing a neck massage?
Wow.
Getting pictures, names, and images.
Right.
So I realized I already had the intuitive empathic capability, even in massage. When I discovered this, I said it just widened the field to all of human history.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah. And the Titanic story is in my book, Healing Human History.
Okay.
These are about all the different things I've encountered, Vietnam War, genocide, Holocaust, Ireland. I try to put the major events of the 20th century in there, Nazism, of course.
Right.
And just to show them from a surviving descendant's point of view, how the history doesn't necessarily die.
Right.
It's alive emotionally in us. So the great thing about what I pride myself in the modality is creating a healthy boundary so we can let the past recede into history without the emotional charge. We don't have to carry it. And just so our audience knows, by the fact that we have our DNA, we're really recycled. We have our ancestors' DNA in us. So whatever that DNA went through, whatever snippet we have of our great-great-grandfather, great-great-grandmother, we have the traumas that they lived through inside of our body.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, if you look at it from a neuroscientist point of view, they have discovered that the human memory is not in the brain.
It's not really?
They said there's a cloud that it's connected to. So, we have computer clouds. Our memory is actually outside.
Oh, wow.
Our brain is the receiver.
Awesome. I did not know that.
So if you look at Constellation, neuroscientists are proving this stuff. A lot of, and the new science around this type of thing is called epigenetics.
Okay.
It's the other stuff besides our genetics. So the field, the outer field, and we have access to that. And just to honor Native American people, really shamans for 10,000 years before white people even existed, would say, I'm going to the spirit world. The Indian boy or Siberian boy is sick or girl. I'm going to go to the spirit world, see what's missing in your field. I'm bringing you back that answer. And then the dis-ease leaves because it really was about this or that. So that's basic shamanism. You go to the spirit world to put in the missing piece of the puzzle that creates dis-ease in the client's body.
Wow,
so it's really an ancient. It's just a modern adaptation of ancient shamanism.
Oh, that's just awesome.
Mixed with psychology, and it's really, people think it's woo. It's not woo. It's the most pragmatic, practical work you can do. And the biggest kicker is by you working on whatever issue, your whole family's affected without you telling them.
Yeah, of course.
So it's like I've had so many clients. My whole family has evolved since I did the work, and I never told them what showed up. Some do, because sometimes it shows up the mother had a miscarriage before the child was born.
Right.
And there's they're not rules, but on occasion it shows up that somebody who's surrounded by death, either miscarriage or an abortion, can't make money or be successful. There's the survivor guilt again.
Okay.
Why do I get to be alive and these two didn't? So they punish themselves in a way. This is all unconscious. And when we give space for those missing pieces of their puzzle, all of a sudden they can be fully alive again.
Right. Right.
So it has a profound effect on everyone. And ironically, the mother would say, sometimes the clients ask me, I did this therapy thing. And it said you had a miscarriage before me. I know you never told me about that. Well, I didn't want to tell you, but I did.
Right.
So the more we open the consciousness, the more the whole family starts to open up their consciousness and share.
That's just that. I can say from experience, audience.
Yeah,
I
were
did
on the Zoom
participate
call,
in one of Gary's Zoom calls, and believe me, you will not be unhappy. You will be thrilled at the results. So, what do you have coming up? How can people find you?
I'm doing workshops locally. We have a new location in Sedona, so I'm there. Monthly workshops in Sedona, monthly workshops in Prescott, right here. At least 2 a month, and then I do 3 to 4 week Zoom classes, and of course I get to take time out to finish my book,
That's right.
which should be out this fall. I'm shooting for fall release on it, and I'm excited. It's challenging to get 10,000 years of human history into 100-something pages.
It is,
but
absolutely.
It's the Cliff Notes version.
Very good. Well, thank you again today, Gary, for being my guest. And so, how can our followers find you?
Well, basically, it's easy. If you go to my website, GaryStuartHealing.com, I have tons of information, and it's STUART, healing.com. Tons of stuff there.
Awesome. And what about social media? Can they find
Social media, generally it's Gary Stuart Live, LIVE, on all platforms.
We will definitely have you back when you get your new book out.
Yeah,
we can talk some more about that. And I want to thank you for being my guest today.
My pleasure and honor.
Absolutely. It's been a thrill. Thank you, audience, for being with us today. Please stay tuned for another book talk coming up soon. I look forward to seeing you again.